Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we are going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about how to get the right players at a Dungeons and Dragons table to create the most prominent, powerful narrative that's ever been told with Dungeons and Dragons. All right, and I think the secret for that exists within the Harry Potter 25th anniversary re-release of all of the Harry Potter films on the American big screen in American theaters. So this happened in August. It was a very big deal. I was very fortunate. I was able to see 5 of the 8 movies. I was able to see Harry Potter 1, 5, 6, 7A, and 7B, all on the big screen, and it was a incredibly powerful, transformative experience for me. I really felt incredibly blessed to be seeing them again. And I am a huge Harry Potter fan that has been fortunate to have many incredibly blessed experiences with Harry Potter since the first book came out. I didn't read it in the first year. People told me, "Oh, you got to read this," and I was like, "I'm not reading that junk." And then they started writing about it in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, and I'm like, "Why is this kid's book being written about in the New York Times?" And there was a reason, right? So it's pretty incredible. And I started reading them, and I've never looked back. It's really an incredible experience. But what's very interesting is I have an incredibly blessed life, and there are sources for me that are just really irreplaceable, right? Or sometimes I think that, right? So one of those sources is Grace Randolph. She's literally the best movie reviewer on the planet, and I listen to all her content. She's a hero of mine. I've tried to build my channel the way she's built hers, and she's done a much better job than me. It has not made mistakes I've made, but she's definitely a personal hero. And so what's really interesting is she's like a primary source for me. Well, I came across these 2 British people, Richard Osman and Marina Hyde, and they have a show called That's Entertainment, right? And they do a show together. It's a podcast, and they put it on YouTube right here. And I started listening to it, which is kind of unusual because I normally don't really like international sources I'll choose American sources over international sources almost every single time. So it's very unusual for me to really vibe with an international source. But Richard Osman and Marina Hyde are absolutely brilliant. They're super, super smart, right? And I think that's one of the things that really attracted me to Dungeons and Dragons was I was incredibly attracted to Dungeons and Dragons, and the reason why is it is a filter for the most charismatic, confident, intelligent people in the world. It's just what it is. And so I found these 2 super smart people, and I started listening to their podcast, right? Well, it turns out, so I listened to it for months, and Richard Osman and Marina High would say, "The books you wrote." And I was like, "He wrote books, right?" And I didn't look it up, right? But finally, he said, Thursday Murder Club. Thursday Murder Club? Isn't that dropping as a new movie on Netflix? And sure enough, it was. So the director of Thursday Murder Club is actually Chris Columbus, who is the director of Gremlins, Home Alone 2, Harry Potter 1, and Harry Potter 2, okay? And a whole bunch of other great movies. So Richard Osman, because he is the author of the books, had access to Christopher Columbus because Christopher Columbus just directed the brand new film Thursday Murder Club. By the way, I've watched Thursday Murder Club. It is absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend you going and checking it out. 5 out of 5 star film. Totally worth your time, right? And it stars Helen Mirren, Pierce Brosnan, Ben Kingsley, and a newcomer who I didn't know. But it was very good. Very, very, very good. So Richard Osman gets access to Chris Columbus. He then interviews Chris Columbus for That's Entertainment, right? And I was shocked what I learned. So first of all, what really shocked me was Chris Columbus explained how he's an American director, right? But but the Harry Potter films are British. So how did an American director get to direct these British movies, right? So he explained how he got the job. And he said the reason he got the job was, okay, so here's what happened. The Harry Potter books came out, and within a year or two, people understood that these things were absolute, just absolute bangers, and that this was going to be a huge, huge hit, right? And so they optioned them for movies. And when they came to start doing the movies, and I think only the second and third book were out at this point, right? They knew that they had a winner on their hands. They knew there was going to be hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars that were going to be made on this. And they were right. There were billions of dollars. J.K. Rowling, there was a point where she was literally richer than the Queen of England. Like, it made billions and billions and billions. To this day, it's still a top seller, and they're still printing, and people are still buying, and people are still reading these Harry Potter books, which is pretty incredible, right? So Christopher Columbus explained how he got the job of directing Harry Potter 1 and Harry Potter 2. And he said the reason he got the job was the casting he did for Home Alone and Home Alone 2. So Home Alone is an absolute massive hit. And the reason it was a massive hit is Macaulay Culkin. He was perfectly cast. You could not have cast his role better. It's very easy to say that if you had put almost anybody else in that role, it would not have clicked the way that this clicked. To this day, Home Alone is a favorite holiday movie, specifically a Christmas movie that people watch. I know people who watch Home Alone as their Christmas film, right? Like, pretty incredible, right? But he cast Macaulay Culkin, and so he was considered a genius caster, a director who knew how to cast. Now, the reality is he probably had a casting director. He had a casting staff, right? But that was his casting, and he did it, right? So he explained that he went on to Harry Potter 1 and Harry Potter 2, Christopher Columbus, and that what he did was he said he knew that they had chosen him because they thought he would cast the kids correctly. And boy, were they right. He picked Dan Radcliffe, he picked Emma Watson, and he picked Rupert Grint. And honestly, I don't think you could have gotten a better group. One, they were fantastic. Two, they had great friendship chemistry. They had chemistry together as friends, right? And then three, they were able to finish the job, right? 8 movies that, going through the Hollywood machine as children, that is incredibly difficult. And so Chris Columbus explained that the way he did this, right, was he said, we're not casting the kids, we're casting the family. We need families who are going to support these kids through what is undoubtedly going to be one of the most difficult obstacle courses in the history of humanity, as far as making it through, stable and well. And it was tough. It was really, really tough. And I think it was very difficult for them to do this, and so very interesting, really fascinating, actually. And he did it. They were right. He was brilliant to cast Macaulay Culkin, and he explained that he cast Macaulay Culkin because of an imperfection, right? Just kind of, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And he brilliantly cast Dan Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint. He did it correctly. All right. Okay. Thanks for your patience. How do we transfer this wisdom, this brilliance, to Dungeons & Dragons? Okay. So, Dungeons & Dragons, okay? Your table. There are different things that can be done with Dungeons & Dragons. Some people sit down and they want to have fun with Dungeons & Dragons. That's not what my channel is about. My channel is about achieving things with Dungeons & Dragons. So what needs to be achieved with Dungeons & Dragons? Right now, I believe there is a race for the most prominent, powerful story to be told in Dungeons & Dragons history. Now, that number 1 slot is already determined, okay? But just like every king on the hill, that, there could be a new contender who comes up and is the new number one slot. So how do we create the most powerful, prominent story ever told with Dungeons and Dragons, right? Well, the way it's been done in the past is you gather your friends and you tell the best story you can, right? Well, I believe that is wrong, okay? When you go to perform an American baseball team, an American football team, an American basketball team, you don't get a bunch of friends to play. You get the best players you can. You carefully select them. You scout them. You recruit them, right? And what I am saying specifically is that for Dungeons and Dragons to make the most prominent, powerful story ever told with Dungeons and Dragons, to become the new number one slot, right? New number one storytellers with Dungeons and Dragons. Don't play with your friends. Cast each player slot. Realize that this is very important, and it's really key. It's a really key aspect of that the people who are going to come to that table, that you need to cast each slot, right? You need to choose the right imperfections. They need to have the necessary talent. They need to have the ability to gel together as a table. And I believe that if this is done, if every single player slot at a Dungeons and Dragons table is cast, not simply filled by your friends, that will create the new number one, most powerful, most prominent tale ever told with Dungeons and Dragons. And I think if you do that, you could be looking at millions or even billions. Every single word that you just heard in this video is my humble opinion. Nothing more, nothing less. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.